You're on a GLP-1. But now you're wondering, how do I manage my side effects? What do I eat to stay strong? Because reaching your weight loss goals can take more than meds. That's where Weight Watchers Med Plus comes in. Get access to trusted experts, food plans that work with your body, and habit coaching to keep you on track. Plus access to GLP-1 medication. Get started at WeightWatchers.com. All medical services are provided through our affiliated medical group, Weight Watchers Clinic. Medications require eligibility and prescription. Individual results may vary. See site for more details.
Robots Radio. Games. Lore. Stories. Community. Just press play. Welcome to the Fallout Lorecast, the podcast that explores the boundaries of our knowledge about the world of Fallout. I'm sure we've all been in this situation, especially in your early playthroughs of like Fallout 4 or Fallout 76. You're walking around, exploring a new area, you come across a swampy zone or the edges of a lake somewhere, and all of a sudden you hear Mirelurks. Mirelurks are a pain in the butt. I've talked about them a lot. They've come up before on my episodes and on patron episodes, but they're a pain. They have this huge carapace and a tiny little face, and you're supposed to target their little itty-bitty face, and if you have a melee weapon, that's even harder. And they come in groups, and they swarm you, and they're not very smart. I mean, they were evolved from horseshoe crabs. They're like these big, giant crab guys, right? And they're a pain in the butt. But after you deal with them, you continue exploring. And then you come across more, not just regular Mirelurks. No. Other kinds of creatures with the same name, but then differences. And I'm not just talking about like irradiated Mirelurks or glowing ones or that kind of thing. I'm talking about Mirelurk Kings or Hunters or Queens. And they all look very different, and yet they all have the title Mirelurk. How does that make any sense? Are they related? What's the deal with these other weird Mirelurks? Well, that's today's episode, because we're going to take a look at each of these creatures and how they are or aren't related to regular Mirelurks, because it's super weird. Here we go. So we're not going to get into all the nitty-gritty details about regular Mirelurks because I've already talked about that before. Remember, they're evolved, basically, with FEV and mutations from horseshoe crabs, like many other creatures and weird creatures in the wasteland. And there's full-grown ones, there's little hatchlings and spawns, the ones that kind of get pooped out by the Mirelurk Queen. There's soft shell ones, there's razor claws, there's all sorts of variations on this crab-like Mirelurk, and we'll call these the crab version because those are the most common. Those are the ones that you see even in the older games. But what about Mirelurk Hunters? Let's start with them. Eventually we'll get to the Kings and Queens, but let's go from regular Mirelurks to the Mirelurk Hunters. Why Hunters, and why do they look so different? A regular Mirelurk has this big shell. They're kind of these big round boys, and the Mirelurk Hunter looks like a lobster. It doesn't look like a crab. It has a elongated body. It still has pinchers, but it's much lower to the ground, multiple legs, antenna. For the most part, it looks like a really big lobster. And that's exactly what it is. These can be found in New England because they're a part of the Commonwealth. They're a part of Fallout 4 initially. And they have those buggy little eyes and antennas and pinchers. And it turns out that they most likely evolved from lobsters, just like the regular Mirelurks evolved from crabs. But they're genetically distinct. They are not actually genetically related to the crab-like Mirelurks. They're called Mirelurks because they are these big abominations that live in these watery areas, oftentimes alongside the other Mirelurks. So they get the same name, but they're not genetically connected. They're not like a different phase in the lifespan of a regular Mirelurk or an evolution of that type of Mirelurk. They are completely distinct. They are, a better name would be lobster lurks. Let's just call them that. You could have crab lurks and lobster lurks. That's what these guys are. And they work differently from the crab lurks. We'll just call them crab lurks. These ones don't have the shells. They are less protected, but they are also more aggressive, thus the name Hunter. They are also the first on this list that actually have a ranged attack. The regular Mirelurks, the crab lurks, run up to you with their little tick, 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 tick feet and their little pinchers, and they try to pinch your face off. Well, these guys, they can do that. But they also have a spit attack. They spit poison. And in the games, it's between like 8 and 15 points of poison damage. And they are much more aggressive than the crab lurks. They also come in variations like glowing Mirelurk Hunters and albino Mirelurk Hunters. And once you understand that all kind of makes sense, right? They evolved from lobsters and all that. That kind of makes sense. I guess lobsters don't really spit, but who knows? They evolved the ability to spit as they got bigger. But here's the weirdest thing. When you kill them, you get Mirelurk meat. And at first you go, okay, it's a Mirelurk thing. It has meat on it, so it's Mirelurk meat. But it is indistinguishable from the crab Mirelurk version of this. Both give you Mirelurk meat, and there's no distinction. It's the same. But if you have ever eaten crab and then eaten lobster, you know that those are not the same thing. Strange, right? Well, that's not the only place things get really weird, because we need to talk about Mirelurk Queens. And we've all come across these behemoth Mirelurks. They're really big, right? They come right out of the water and they tower above you and they shoot you with acid and they claw at you. And wait a minute, they shoot you with acid. They actually have a projectile. Okay, but my assumption with these for a very long time was that these were the Mirelurk queens of the regular crab-like Mirelurks, that these were like the big moms, and those are like the little ones that spawn out, right? Because they shoot these little babies, the little Mirelurk spawns, the little guys, and they look kind of round, like a really big one of the round boys, but wait, they're different. It turns out that the Mirelurk Queen is actually more related to the Mirelurk Hunter than it is to a regular Mirelurk, because they also evolved from lobsters. These are not crabs. Take a look at them. They have a big carapace. They definitely have some protection, and they've got the kind of round shape. But when you actually look at the details, they seem somewhere between a crab and a lobster. And it turns out that they evolved from the lobster. And maybe there's some hints about this in the fact that they also have an acid spray attack, similar to the toxic spray of the lobster version, the Hunters. And on top of that, they have this special attack, this radiation field, which irradiates the things around it by 10 rads per second. So yeah, they're real big. They're more related to the lobsters, but they seem like they might be something in between, because they still kind of look crab-like. They're this weird thing, right? Now, here's the even stranger part. As I mentioned before, they poop out the other little baby Mirelurks. And the little baby Mirelurks all come running at you, doing mom's bidding. And my assumption with those is that they were always the regular Mirelurks. They have these soft little shells on them. They look like they probably grow up to be regular crab-like Mirelurks. But maybe that's not the case. What's the deal with Mirelurk queens? Because they don't look like little hunters. They look like regular Mirelurks. And yet the queen is more genetically related to the hunter because of the lobster evolution. What's the deal with that? It's so weird, right? Now you might be wondering, how many Mirelurk queens are actually in the games? That's a good question. I don't have a total list of all the individual Mirelurks that you come across, the regular ones or the hunters. Typically, if there's water nearby, you find kind of a nest of them. But there is a very specific number of Mirelurk queens. In Fallout 4, You have, of course, the one that you engage with, and this is most likely the first one that you will come across at the castle. You're helping Preston and the Minutemen take back the castle, and of course you have to kill this gigantic creature in order to do so. And I remember that being very difficult. In fact, I actually watched shout out to Sam, my co-host on the Mass Effect Lorecast, who has been playing back through Fallout 4. And during one of his live streams, I watched him fighting this Mirelurk and consistently getting blown up by Preston. So if you've gone through that before, comment and let me know. So you've got the castle one, but then there's one at Emmett's Causeway. You may have headed over here during the Rite of Passage quest. It's kind of just a big, murky area. There's a lot of water. There's really nothing super notable except for the Mirelurk Queen, who kind of comes out of the marshes and surprises you. So fortunately for us, I guess you could call me or anybody who has played these games and actually just really loves the different creatures, a Mirelurk fan. There are some extra variations and locations you can find Mirelurk Queens in Fallout 76. There's, of course, the regular Mirelurk Queen, but then there's a glowing one, a prime Mirelurk Queen, and all of these just get more difficult as we go down the list. They're higher levels, they have better stats. For the most part, they're just bigger and meaner and a little bit different looking. Then you have the Scorched Mirelurk Queen, because there's Scorched variations of pretty much everything in Fallout 76. And then the Strangler Queen. This is a very unique version of the Mirelurk Queen who drops a Strangler Heart, which is needed for one of the quests in Fallout 76. So let's talk about all the places you can come across a Mirelurk Queen in 76, because remember, the map in Fallout 76 is 4 times the size of Fallout 4. So first, you can find them in the water outside the Mire's Eye. This is a Mirelurk den in the Mire region. You can also fight one as the final boss of this Swarm of Suitors event. This is one of those events that pops out in the map on occasion. Then you can also occasionally find 2 Mirelurk Queens at the Freak Show. This is kind of like a zoo for raiders in the Savage Divide. There's also a few just kind of random locations across the map of Fallout 76. For example, in the Highland Marsh, which is in the Mire. There's Cranberry Glades, which is in the Cranberry Bog region. Max Farm, also in Cranberry Bog. The Sunrise Field, also in Cranberry Bog. And then Spruce Knob Lake, which is probably one of the locations that sits the most in my memory, because you come across that lake, and then, of course, there's a Mirelurk Queen there. Also in the Cranberry Bog, there's Quarry X3. This is one of those rock quarries. And then there is the toxic dried lake beds of the Toxic Valley region, which you can kind of find them just randomly wandering around on occasion. There's also the Primal Cuts event in the Mire, where a Mirelurk Queen is the final boss. Now, we talked about the weird Mirelurk meat that shows up for both the Crab Lurks and the Lobster Lurks. Well, guess what the Mirelurk Queen drops? She drops Queen Mirelurk meat. It's its own kind of meat, specific to making whatever you want to cook with gigantic meat from a big lobster monster. Lobster Monster, that's a good name for a band. Also, the glowing version drops nuclear waste, so that makes sense. And glowing meat and glowing blood, typical of glowing monsters. But then the Prime Mirelurk Queen also drops prime meat, like anything else that's labeled prime. And this is another one of those weird oddities. It's a video game, and so there's video gamey stuff, right? But a prime Mirelurk Queen is clearly not made out of the same meat as a prime any other creature that's not a Mirelurk Queen, and yet they drop prime meat. So it is a little gamey and a little weird. Now, this episode isn't a top 10 style episode. This is more of a, like, what's the deal with kind of episode. But I've been brainstorming some fun new ideas for new episodes of this show and video content that goes up on the Fallout Lorecast YouTube page. If you haven't checked that out and you want to see video versions of some of the episodes that I've done, go check that out. But this is a place where I could use your help. I just started a new channel on the Discord as a place for all of you to chime in with your suggestions for top 10 lists. This is inspired by Krendor's YouTube page. And if you don't play World of Warcraft, you may not be familiar with this page, but he does this really cool, funny series on top 10, like, pointless things. And he'll take, like, all sorts of stuff. Top 10 lighthouses in World of Warcraft, or pirate characters, or spiders, or whatever. And it's actually very entertaining and informative in kind of this interesting way. So I want to do something very similar with future episodes of this podcast and do video versions of this as well. And so I want the community to chime in. Right now, the page is top 10 weirdest NPCs, and it's on the Robots Radio Discord. There's a link in the show notes, and you can jump in and you can share your suggestions, and who knows, maybe your suggestion will make it into a future episode. And it's not just going to be NPCs. This is going to be all sorts of stuff. So I'd love your feedback if you can join in with the community, and also know a lot of it's going to be pretty weird. I mean, knowing me, that seems like the case. And speaking of weird, I think that of the Mirelurks, the Mirelurk King might be the weirdest of them all. And we'll get to that after we go thank our patrons, so don't go anywhere. It's time for that spring reset. I'm taking a look at everything in my closet and figuring out that, oh no, this absolutely needs to go. And it's about time I replace things so that my clothes aren't older than my 15-year-old. Now you might think that they lasted that long because they were well made, but no, they're in terrible condition. Unlike the new jeans I just got from Quince. Jeans have always been my personal go-to because you can kind of wear them for lots of different things, but maybe they're not your thing. Maybe you're looking for, 100% European linen with insanely soft flow knit activewear fabric. It's definitely getting warmer, and their flow knit activewear is moisture wicking, anti-odor, and soft enough that you'll actually want to wear it every day. So pick out what you want. You can't go wrong because they have prices 50 to 60% less than similar brands. And like I said before, they are high quality. I continue to wear their clothes all the time, and I know that these new jeans are going to last me a lot better than the other things in my wardrobe. And on top of it, they look great. They're so comfortable. And I spent just as much on the jeans that I am now cleaning out of my wardrobe. So if you're looking for something better, just all around better, go check out Quince. So go do it right now. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/falloutlore for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com/falloutlore for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/falloutlore.
You're on a GLP-1. Your appetite is changing, your cravings quiet down, and food noise is finally fading. But now you're wondering, how do I manage my side effects? What do I eat to stay strong? How do I break through a plateau? Because reaching your weight loss goals can take more than meds. That's where Weight Watchers Med Plus comes in. The support designed to help you navigate what comes next. With trusted experts who guide you, food plans that work with your body, support to help manage side effects, plus access to GLP-1 medication. Weight Watchers Med Plus is designed to help you lose more weight. Watch it work. Get started today at WeightWatchers.com. All medical services are provided through our affiliated medical group, Weight Watchers Clinic. Medications require eligibility and prescription. Individual results may vary. See site for more details.
Hello there, old chap. Good to see another of General Atomic's finest, still eager to serve.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show. This is where I get to thank our patrons and welcome our newest patrons, Cleric Rufio and Elder Shano. Welcome to, I hope I pronounced your names right. Welcome to the Patreon, patreon.com/FalloutLorecast. Check out all the cool stuff there, including these new bonus episodes I'll be doing as I play through the new content in Fallout 76. I'll try to get those up at least once a month, if not multiple times during the month. So be aware, those are available for everybody who subscribes and is a paying member of our Patreon. Also, I have to shout out our Sentry Bots. Words are hard. Sentry Bots, Germinator, and Pluto Mayhem. Thank you so much for your support. And to all 118 of our current patrons, thank you so very much. And if you'd like to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, I'll read it out on a future episode of the show, just like this one from Jeff Sham in the US, who writes, "My daily companion. I listen to this podcast at minimum once a day, to the point where Robots has started to feel like my traveling companion through the wasteland. I love it so much, and I'm thankful to have it. It's also inspired me to run my own Fallout TTRPG set in Maine around the college I graduated from, which has been a blast." That's so awesome. I hope you're having an awesome time with your tabletop RPG. Thank you so much, Jeff. And then this one from Turk8115 in Canada, who writes, "So much information. I just started listening to this podcast and have added it to my daily listening. I have learned so much about the games that I had no idea existed. Thanks, Turk. And then this one from Young Bass in Great Britain, who writes, thumbs up. Nice show. I was just listening to episode 297 and wanted to add that a small detail that no one mentioned, which was the radio station that everyone hates and wants to destroy, which reminds me of Tabitha. Thanks. Well, thanks, Young, and everyone else who takes the time to respond and support the show and all the stuff out there. Thank you so very, very much. If you'd like to support in other ways, you can rate the show on Spotify. You can share it with your friends. You can check out the YouTube videos, all sorts of fun ways to engage with this community and the stuff that we've been making here. Thank you so much. All right, let's go talk about those Mirelurk Kings because they're super weird. Here we go.
If you have any questions about Nuka World, I'd be delighted to answer them.
All right, so we've got crab lurks, lobster lurks, giant lobster lurks, and then we have Mirelurk Kings. Now, think about the way they look. What do you think they're evolved from, or have been mutated from, I guess is a better way to put it? They have almost these human-like characteristics. Longer legs, longer arms. They crawl around, but they have the ability to kind of stand up and walk on their back legs if they want. They have a tail. They have these fins that just kind of come off of everything. And this weird flap of gills that kind of come down from their face. And a face, speaking of their face, that is reminiscent of an ancient sea creature, which we'll get into in a little bit. If you were to guess what these evolved from, you wouldn't pick crab or lobster because they don't even have pinchers. They don't have shells. They don't look anything like the other Mirelurks. And yet, they are called Mirelurk Kings. And there's a reason for this. So first of all, they were mutated from snapping turtles. And that still doesn't make 100% sense to me. I mean, they don't have shells. But snapping turtles have arms and legs, and they can kind of crawl around like these do, unlike the insect-like legs of, say, a crab or a lobster. So that part tracks. And if you look at their flesh, they seem to have more of this reptilian kind of quality to their flesh. In fact, they exude a certain kind of oily goo in order to keep themselves nice and moist all the time. So that's pretty gross, but I guess a little bit more reptile-like than crustacean. But they also have a very important feature that is distinct from any of the other Mirelurks, and that's their intelligence. These are the most human-like of any of the Mirelurk-type creatures. They can walk around on two legs, and they do also have what appear to be more like fingers with opposable thumbs that they can actually use to pick things up. But it goes beyond that. The Mirelurk King is not a king because he's like a male version of a queen or something like that. It has nothing to do with genetic relationships between the Mirelurks, and everything to do with power and who's in control. The rest of the Mirelurks, the different types, are highly unintelligent. They simply react to their environments, just like crabs and lobsters would in the wild. But Mirelurk Kings have figured out that if they live alongside these dumb creatures, that they can actually control them. They're welcomed into regular Mirelurk society, if you wanted to call it that, and they can wield the rest of those groups almost like pets in order to do their bidding, to keep them safe, to attack their enemies, maybe even to scavenge food for them. Who knows? Maybe even Mirelurk Kings will eat dead, regular Mirelurks if they are hungry enough. They're not the same species, so that's not cannibalism. And when we take a look at the way that they do engage when they do enter combat, it is different from the other Mirelurks. They have melee attacks, of course. They have the claws that they can use. But they also have a sonic attack. None of the other Mirelurks have sonic attacks. They can spew poison or toxin or whatever, but a sonic attack, this is an energy attack using sound. And somehow these creatures can do that. Maybe it comes out of their gills or their heads. Maybe there's something that vibrates inside their bodies that sends out this sonic attack. They also can disease creatures that they hit. Chance on hit of contracting a disease is 5%. This isn't toxic or poison that they're spewing out. This is the idea that they are infected with a disease and then they spread it. And of course, there's variations on these. There's the Mirelurk regular king, and then there's the deep king, the glowing versions, and Mirelurk king. And that's all in Fallout 4. In Fallout 76, you also have the savage Mirelurk, the Mirelurk High King, a deadly Mirelurk king, and then, of course, the scorched variant with all sorts of different varieties of hit points and attack and locations and things like that. Now, they aren't too common in Fallout 4, but of course with Fallout 76, just like the other ones, there are more locations where you can come across them. Primarily, you can find them in the Wendigo Cave, alongside other groups of Mirelurks like we've mentioned in some of these other locations. Also, you can find 5 in Vault 94, and in the new Skyline Valley update, there's one that you can find at the Slumber Mill Hotel, and 3 that can be found in the Hemlock Springs Dump. And remember my confusion about the Mirelurk meat? Well, that actually works here too, because these, like anything else labeled Mirelurk, drop Mirelurk meat. But I have a feeling something that mutated from a turtle is going to taste very differently than it does from, say, a crab or a lobster. Now, one of the other things that I want to get to before we hit the end of this episode is the meta perspective on this. One of the reasons why the Mirelurk King may look visually different and have a completely different story from these other Mirelurks can be explained from the Art of Fallout 4 book. It says here, the Mirelurks got a bit of a reboot visually, as well as significant expansion on the variants with the addition of the Hunter and the Queen. That was simply a case of wanting to try something a bit more animalistic and to move away from the guy in a suit vibe of the original. So during the design of Fallout 4, they decided to expand out from the way the Mirelurks had traditionally been in the series. And the Mirelurk King is a piece of that. He looks very distinct from the others. And I accidentally use he in that because king is generally referred to as he, right? But that doesn't mean that Mirelurk Kings are all male. They are a completely different species. They are male or female. They're both. We also get this really fun explanation by Jonah Loeb, the art director, from Jonah's ArtStation account. Jonah says, though it appears human in shape, the Mirelurk King evolved in non-sapien ways. Namely, its upper and lower fins have developed joints and claws capable of flexation. Similarly, there is no evolutionary link between the Mirelurk Kings and the Mirelurks themselves. The story I told myself while building this Lovecraftian monstrosity was that his kind had evolved in ways that allowed them to dominate and perhaps control their less intelligent Mirelurk peers, like I described before. To reinforce this idea, I doubled down on the kingly imagery by sculpting a hard-shelled crown, which was in the concept art to begin with, a la Dunkleosteus, which is an ancient fish, and you can look this up. The face of the Mirelurk King looks a lot like this ancient fish. And then he goes on, as well as dressing him in long, sweeping red gill robes, like the ancient Western kings, which was not in the concept art. I built him anticipating that he'd walk upright, proudly, with his chest out, like the Fallout 3 variety. But alas, the animator chose a more froggish route. That's why they crouch on all fours rather than walking straight up. The model itself is 9.1 thousand triangles, the textures 2,048. This was created for Fallout 4. It's so cool to get people's inside knowledge about the way they design these things and how they create them, and see the evolution of this creature in the games, not just in the mutations that happen in the games, but from a meta perspective. And they also brought up the whole Mirelurk King from Fallout 3 evolving into what it looks like in Fallout 4. And I think that's worth mentioning here as well, as we've discussed with some of the weapons and just some of the things that have evolved with the series over time. The Mirelurk Kings in Fallout 3 looked very different. And I primarily focused on Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, as I often do, as those are kind of the more modern takes on these Fallout games, but it's worth at least mentioning. Of course, you can come across the Mirelurk Kings in multiple locations. They're generally grouped up with the other Mirelurks. There are some similarities here, and they do walk on two legs, but they look distinctly different. They have these humanish faces, and that makes them a little bit more eerie to me. They seem to be more like walking fish, almost a combination between fish and a man, kind of like the creature of the Black Lagoon or something like that. And yet they evolve through the development of the series, not in the world of Fallout, into these other creatures that are much more animalistic and have the faces of ancient sea life. It's very cool. So I guess that's what the deal is with Mirelurk Kings. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. And please remember to chime in on the Discord. Let us know. Let me and some of the other people I've been working on with videos and things like that. Let us know some of your opinions about Fallout top 10 lists, like the weirdest NPCs. And who knows, maybe your stuff will end up in the next episode. Thanks for being here and being a part of the community. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. To plug into everything else we're doing, check out robotsradio.net. Reach out to me on Twitter at robots_radio. Check out the Robots Radio Rocket Club, where you can join me and a bunch of our other creators creating your podcast, starting a new podcast, or helping your current podcast grow. There's more information about that on robotsradio.net as well. And you can always talk with us and the entire community, over 2,000 people on the Robots Radio Discord. Come join us. We'd love to chat with you. See you guys next time.